Hey guys, it's Chris from Highline Guitars and you're watching another episode of From the Luthier's Workbench. In this episode, I'm going to give you an update on all the different guitar projects that I am currently working on. So let's get started. Okay, so here's what I currently have on the workbench right now. I've actually got 3 different guitars that are in various stages of construction. And this one here you probably recall me talking about in previous episodes. This is the cow skull guitar, which I've been working on. And last week, I took the whole week off, and my wife and I jumped in the car and we drove down to Santa Fe, New Mexico, which is about 6 hours away. We just spent the week down there hanging out by the pool and doing a little bit of shopping and visiting a couple of museums down there. And while I was away, that gave this guitar and the this is the science fiction themed graphic that I did the transfer on. But being away for a week gave these guitars a chance to cure the finishes that I put on it. And what I did on this one in particular was I applied my favorite hand-rubbed polyurethane varnish finish. And it's basically it's like 3 parts polyurethane, 1 part boiled linseed oil, and then just enough mineral spirits to thin it out to make it easy to wipe on with a rag. And then what I did was, over the course of a week prior to going on vacation, I put down a total of about 10 applications. So, roughly 10 coats of that hand-rub polyurethane finish. And when I got back, what I did was I level sanded the whole surface with 220 grit sandpaper. And I just did this very lightly, just enough to take down the high spots. And then what I did after that was I started applying a coat, one in the morning, one in the evening. And I would build it up, and then after each coat, I would give it a light sanding with 400 grit. And the goal is to get the surface nice and smooth. And I'm pretty close to being there. I think at this stage I can move up to an 800 grit. I'll level sand it and then continue applying. Now, this is obviously a process that takes quite a bit of time, so it's not something you are going to want to do if you're in a really big rush to put down a finish. This one, I'm not necessarily in a big rush, so I can take the time to do it. And I've also done the same thing to the control cavity covers and the truss rod cover. So this guitar is coming along pretty well. The neck that I'm going to be installing on this guitar is this one here. This is just a Eastern Rock maple and with a rosewood fretboard. And this one has been completely sanded, and then I applied on the maple part, I applied my varnish mix, and I usually just put 1 or 2 coats on. I don't really worry about putting on too many, and then I let it dry. Then I'll go back in and I'll sand from 800 all the way up to about 2,000 grit to get it really, really smooth. And I even sometimes will wipe it down with some extra fine steel wool just to give it that nice, really smooth finish. And then for the fretboard itself, I take, it's roughly a 50-50 mix of boiled linseed oil and mineral spirits, and it makes a very thinned mixture. And I'll put just a single light coat onto the net, let it soak in, or onto the fretboard. Now let it soak in, and that will seal and protect the wood. It also brings out the beauty of the wood grain. So again, this neck is for this guitar. And this is the neck that I'll be using on the SciFi themed guitar. And it's a flame maple neck. I've used the same varnish mix on this neck that I've used on the other neck. And then again, just the thinned boiled linseed oil on the fretboard. This is Purple Heart, and it has a really nice figure. I don't know if you can see it, but it's in the right light. You can really see the flame figure in it. And I've installed threaded inserts into the heel. I've decided to move from using number 8 wood screws that I've been using to using these threaded inserts. They're easy to install, and it's nice because typically when I'm building a guitar, depending on the circumstances, I may pull the neck out a couple of times during assembly. And using the threaded inserts means that I won't run the risk of stripping out the threads in the wood when using wood screws. So that's pretty much the approach that I'm using, and it works really well. So that's the neck for the SciFi Guitar. This neck here, I just stained it, is a flame maple neck, and as you can see, it's a left-handed neck. And this is going to be going into a custom left-handed Clarksdale guitar design. And for those of you who don't know, when I mention the different guitar models that I sell, like the Apollyon, the Osiris, there's a bunch of others, including the Clarksdale. You can go to my sister website, and I'll put a link in the description below, eguitarplans.com, and there you can see a lot of the different guitar designs that I offer. And I actually, on that website, I offer plans for those guitars for sale in case you would like to build one yourself. But this one is, it's the same as this neck in terms of the fretboard. It's the rosewood fretboard, has clay fret marker dots, and I just put the stain on here to help pop some of that figure out on the flamed maple. It looks pretty good. And I'll be applying my 50-50 mix of boiled linseed oil and mineral spirits on the fretboard here shortly. And then I will be installing the threaded inserts on the back of this neck. So what I'm going to be using, the top is going to be this slab of flamed maple. Has a really nice figure in it all the way across. Excellent character. Should look really nice. And then for the base of the body, I've got this slab of alder, and I will be cutting that into the shape of the body here shortly. And this guitar will be fitted with a Gato Wilkinson tremolo bridge, I think it's the VS 100, and some nice tuners, Gato tuners, and should be a pretty cool guitar. So that is, I think that's a pretty good rundown of what I'm currently working on. What I should also mention is on the SciFi Guitar that I'm working on, what I'm planning to do, before I went on vacation, I sprayed a total of about, must have been about 12 coats of a water-based clear polyurethane. In fact, I put it on so heavy, the back of it has kind of that yellow tint, and I'm not really too concerned about it because this guitar is actually going to be a gift, and it will probably never get played. It's probably just going to be hung up for decoration. But what I'm going to do is, now that it has sit for a week and the polyurethane is pretty much thoroughly cured, I'm going to level sand with probably 800 grit dry. And once I've finished leveling dry, I'm going to switch and I'm going to finish polish sanding with 1500 grit and then 2000 grit wet sanding. And I know I've said in the past that I like to dry sand water-based finishes, but if you let a water-based finish cure for at least a week or even longer, you can safely wet sand it. If you try to wet sand it before it has had a chance to fully cure, you can reactivate some of the residual glycol ethers that remain in the finish and cause the finish to soften a little bit. But I'm confident that this is pretty much bone dry. So I think I can go ahead and safely wet sand it. And the advantages that wet sanding has over dry sanding is wet sanding, if you do it correctly, you won't have as many potential problems with deep scratches that you can get when you try to level sand with just dry. And to really get a dry sanding process to work properly, you've got to have equipment that can suck away the dust as you're sanding. And I have that equipment, but I know that a lot of other folks out there don't. So you really almost, no matter what, have to do your level sanding using waterproof sandpaper and then water as a lubricant. So I'm going to go ahead and do that with this guitar, and I expect that should work out fine. I'll get it level sanded, and then I'm going to buff it out to a high gloss shine. So I hope to be able to do that maybe next week. It's hard to say. I've got so many different projects going on right now that, you know, I can't let myself get distracted and just focus on one. I've got to kind of bounce around from one to the next. So I probably will have to sit down and schedule out everything so I know what to do and when to do it. So, okay, well, that concludes this week's episode of From the Luthier's Workbench. One other thing. Yesterday I posted a link, and I'll put a link in the description below, to an article on Rolling Stone magazine about the health of the guitar industry. And it's a pretty interesting article. I encourage you to give it a read, see what you guys think. But it seems pretty hopeful about this industry that we're in. So I think in future episodes I'm going to be talking more about these guitars that I'm currently building, and you can watch them slowly come to fruition. I'll also continue to put out my once a week quick tips video. I just posted one on Wednesday, and that one was kind of an update on the technique that I use for putting on this polymer clay inlay. That's it for now, and we will see you in the next episode. So until then, take care.